Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Notary Titans for Tuesday, May 7th, 2019. This is a call that is really designed for you. We're going to go over a couple of topics, and then we also have lots of questions to go over. Carol, thank you so much. Carol Ray is the founder of Notary to Pro. She's joining us from Reno, Nevada today. Carol, what are you excited about?
I'm excited about two things. First of all, most important, my oldest granddaughter is going to be coming to visit us next week for a few days. We don't get to see her very often, so that's really exciting. And she was gone. She was out of the country for a very long time. She graduated, got her master's from the University of Limerick in Ireland. And so we went for a long time without seeing her at all. And the other thing I'm very excited about is the Notary to Pro Spanish course is starting to take off. And we're getting some really good feedback. People are enjoying the fact that they can learn in their native language and get all the benefits of Notary to Pro in English. So that's kind of Barbara's baby, and Lalo Garcia, who's the one that translated. He's my daughter-in-law's brother. And so I'm happy to see that those things are growing. And they just started something called the Hispanic Society of Notaries, which is going to have amazing benefits and so many things going on. So that's what I'm excited about.
I am so glad to hear that. I think that you were definitely way ahead of the curve on even coming up with that and creating that, spending the time to create on that. I'm so glad that it's getting traction. I think that's going to do a lot of good and a lot of good service.
I do too. I do too. So
wonderful. Awesome. Well, congratulations. That is huge. For me, I'm excited about a lot of things. But
you always are.
I know. I'm like, got to choose something here. My awesome jar is already filled to the top this year. It was supposed to last me all year, but there's a lot of awesome stuff going on. But I think what I'm really starting to get excited about is May. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. May 20th will be the 2-year anniversary of the Sign and Thrive course. So we are doing a big Unbag a Notary giveaway that day. I will do it live on YouTube. And we're going to give away multiple notary bags, just chock full of all the stuff that notaries need to do their job, plus printers and all kinds of stuff. So keep your eye out for that. I'll send out the emails on how to see it and participate on that. But that'll be on May 20th. So I'm just in the planning stages of that and buying all the stuff. So I'm excited. And now I think we should just dive in here and why don't we start with a topic, Carol? How do you feel about that?
That's fine.
We've got a ton of questions. I know we've got people live on the call too that will have questions, but I think I'm loving the idea that you came up with on sharing the stress levels that escrow officers, our ideal customers, are going through. So I'm just going to kind of turn it over to you and talk about that, because you were an escrow officer for many years, right, Carol?
Yes. And people don't understand it. I really don't know that world today. But back when I started, we as escrow officers did everything. Somebody wants to know if Bill's sleeping. No, he's reading. That's what he's always doing. And he can't escape. There's no place in a hotel room for him to go. But no, anyway, when I first started, and back in those days, and we're talking about in the early 60s, I took training through a bank. And back then, it was a 3-year process. They moved me from branch to work under different managers, escrow managers, in different neighborhoods. Some of them were very low income. Some of them were high priced, big, skyscrapers and condos and just all kinds of property. Is that what they wanted you to do, is to learn how to deal with every type of property, including bulk sales, which is service stations, mom and pop stores, that kind of thing. And it was a full, complete 3-year program. I didn't finish. I ended up having a baby and marrying this guy over here, and I didn't do it. When I did do it was years later, when my youngest daughter was getting into high school, and kind of fell into a job starting out as a receptionist and then moving my way up into escrow officer. So I did that for many years. But back then, we did everything. You dealt with the realtors, the buyers, the sellers, the lenders. You opened the escrows. You typed the instructions. You handled, ordering the title reports, and you did all of those things. I understand now they have that job broken up quite a bit, but it's still, whatever part of it you do, it can be very stressful because you're dealing with the lenders, the realtors, the buyers, the sellers, and sometimes there's clashing between realtors and there's situations that come up. And there's always that constant fear that you're going to make a mistake and not do your accounting properly and end up short on an escrow. And that's pretty scary. So, and it's constant work. The hardest for me was when I became a manager, because now you're in charge of millions of dollars in trust money, escrow officers that you're not sure they know exactly what they're doing. And so it was very stressful. And I told you this morning, and I don't mind sharing this, instead of going to psychiatrists, and my husband will attest to this, I used to go usually once a month. I'd go down like on a Saturday, I'd go play poker. That was my de-stressor, because it is so stressful. I heard at one point in time, and I don't know, you talked about this, we both did, that at one point in time, it was a high suicide rate with escrow officers. So they need to be really treated with respect and with gentleness. Don't be demanding of them. When you do go in and you're trying to work with an escrow officer, keep in mind the kind of stress that they're going through. Don't just be, gabby, wasting their time. Try to make them, just a meaningful conversation. Try to make them feel that they are really important, but that you respect their time and not try to just take up their time. I also promised that I was going to tell a story. I have a couple.
Do you mind, before we jump into the stories,
sure.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what you've shared so far? Well, no,
people get very upset. Escrow officer is the target so many times.
And that's what I think is real important to highlight. Like, how do we, as the mobile notary and loan signing agent, translate that stress into being a better colleague?
I think being sympathetic, for one thing, understanding the kind of stress that they're under, seriously not taking up valuable time, because for many, at least when I was in it, for many of us, the time was, oftentimes I was at work at 5 o'clock in the morning and not get home until 7 at night, just because the workload was so heavy. And I was very fortunate, because when I got my own desk, I was very successful, and I was doing 60 to 80 escrows a month. And that was before I had assistants. Once I became a manager, then I had a couple of assistants to help me. But yeah, just being understanding and being respectful of their time, letting them know what you can do to help them, but not overstepping.
Yeah. And there's a few key points that I really want to highlight. Number one is when escrow officer takes pride in their job, which many of them do. Many of them are kind of OCD control. They really take pride in what they're doing. There's a lot of workaholics in the escrow world. So they are there 5 a.m. They are there till 8 p.m. sometimes. They're really burning the candle at both ends.
Yep.
So, and I love that you took some time for yourself through the poker table, and other people have their own vents, but some of them do not. And where that can prove valuable to people like us is understanding that mindset, knowing that if we were going to write articles or share input or give gifts, this type of escape or respite from their day-to-day might be helpful to them as well. I like to share massage coupons, anything that would help them de-stress a little bit. That's where our mindset really wants to come in. And you also talked a lot about the time. even when an escrow officer is sitting in front of you, making eye contact, imagine the pressure of transferring great wealth, and every single penny is your responsibility. So your mind's going a million miles a minute. So that's why your communication has to be direct, and it has to be a little more creative than just the standard blast emails, right, Carol?
Yes.
How often are they just going to just hit delete or throw those in the trash bin if it's just the same old stuff all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that just left my head, so I'll come back to it. Oh my gosh, that was a really good comment. Carol, what else you got? Save me.
Oh, I was just going to tell, I have 2 stories, but I'll try one and see how it goes over. But, when you're in that position, you get to know all of these people. There's a lot of people that take part in a transaction. Somebody's buying a home, you've got the seller, you've got the buyer, you've got the one that represents the real estate agent that represents both, you've got a lender involved. And it can get very complicated because everybody wants what they want and they want it now. And sometimes that becomes kind of difficult. But I've had some really interesting situations. But this one I will never forget. This was when I was a manager. I was managing an escrow company in Southern California. And I did escrows. I had a couple come in, nicest couple you'd ever want to meet. Escrow went like just beautifully, no problems, everything on time. And Mrs. came in to pick up the check at the close of escrow. And I had no problems. Check was made out to the husband and wife. No other instructions to the contrary. And so she came in and said she was picking up the check, and that was fine. 2 hours later, the husband, who was a very intimidating man, very nice, a parole officer at about 6'8" and about 300 pounds, enormous man, came in, sweet as could be. We'd never had a problem with either one of them. And he was there to pick up the check. And I said, oh, Linda, whatever her name was, she already picked it up. Oh my God. He just, his demeanor totally changed. He got so upset and left. He was so angry, and I had no idea why. Well, I found out it was because they were getting a divorce, and they never told me. They never told me to, divide the funds. There was no instructions. So now wife has the check. He goes to the property where he knows she's at, and he confronts her. She's in her car ready to take off. He gets out of his car and starts to approach her. She ran over him with the car.
Oh, thank God.
He came back to the office, and he was so angry and so upset that 2 of my assistants were ready to call the police because they didn't know. They thought maybe he was going to attack me. Well,
Wow.
he was really upset. And that's when I found out that the 2 of them were going through a divorce. And she thought she was going to keep the money, even though the check was made out to the 2 of them. So he ended up going to the hospital where he stayed for a week. He had a broken collarbone, I think a broken arm. And I had to write to both of them and tell them that unless they gave me instructions on how to divide that check, I was going to have to sheet it to the courts, and they may not end up with anything.
Oh, wow.
And so they finally did give me some instructions and everything. But here's the highlight. It was the sweetest couple that bought this house. And because of their culture, I got a call from the husband, the young husband, very upset. I think it was the next day. And he said, Carol, he said, my wife is not going to move into this house if she finds out what I found in the garage. I said, what did you find in the garage? He says, I found the mother's ashes. One of the sellers, the mother's ashes was in the garage in an urn, and they had left it behind.
Whoops.
And because of their culture, the wife would not move into that house. Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Shut it off. Anyway, so I had to call the realtor, who was a good friend of mine, and I said, you got to get over there right now and go pick up Linda's mother's ashes out of the garage so that they would move into the house, because he said his wife would not move into the house. So that was one of the interesting situations.
Talk about above and beyond. See, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you just don't even think about that you escrow officer has to deal with.
So many other things. I have one other, if you want to hear it. And then we'll go to questions, and then I'll just be quiet. Oh, this was sad. We had a family that had moved out from New York to Southern California, and he had gotten a really good job, the husband. They had 3 kids, and they were living in a relative's garage, and it was summertime. It was hot. But he had started work. They got a loan on this house. They bought this beautiful home from people who were moving to Sacramento, and everything looked great. Last minute, the seller comes. She's got her car loaded with the kids and a bunch of stuff in a trailer. She's ready to go join her husband, who's now working in Sacramento for the DMV or something. And she wanted to know if it's okay to leave. This was the day before the funding of the loan. And I'm like, I never promised anything. That's one thing you learn in escrow. Never. But I said, but it looks good. We're due to fund. Everything's been checked out. As far as I know, I think you're okay to go. Well, they had a pool in this house, and it was July, and it was in Arizona, okay, in Peoria, I think. Pretty hot. So she took off with the kids. They went to Sacramento. The next day, I called to get funding on this loan for this couple who couldn't wait to get out of that garage with their kids and get into their new home. And the supervisor that was over him told because the last minute, the lender will oftentimes call to verify that the people are still employed and everything's okay. They did it, a last minute check on the day of funding. And that supervisor told that funder that this poor man was going to be let go by the end of the month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, can you imagine how evil that person, he was still working, still had his job. He had no business doing that. So that it was a month and a half, I think. The people of Sacramento had nobody to take care of their pool. They were gone. They were up where they needed to be. And this poor couple with their kids were living in a garage with no air conditioning in the middle of Arizona.
Oh my God.
For that time. So you see all kinds of stuff. You see great things happen, and then you see things that are just beyond belief. Anyway, so I'm done with my stories.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I think what's really important to remember, guys, is that with all of these stories and the experience that Carol has and what you guys have experienced on your own, escrow is extremely stressful, and they get thrown under the bus for everything. Right, Carol? I mean,
yep.
You'll hear it from the realtors. You'll hear it from the lenders. They always throw escrow under the bus. And
nobody wants to take responsibility for anything, and escrow is key. So dump it on them.
They dump it on escrow. And escrow, escrow officers are reliant on their relationships with real estate agents and lenders. So they don't have a whole lot of retort when it comes to that. So they just kind of have to just suck it up and deal with it and just fix the problems. Escrow officers are fixers.
I do want to add something that was a very, very good lesson, and it's a lesson to remember today for everybody who's in this business. There was a time, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was maybe in the early 80s, when refis took over. Everything was refis, and we had escrow companies in my area that went after the lenders. I mean, they were right there trying to get the refi business, and that's what they did. And I had always worked with a lot of real estate agents and brokers. And during those times, I wanted that business too. We wanted refi business for our escrow company. But I would go out every single week and I would visit realtors. I would, during the summertime, I would pack a little ice chest. I'd bring them ice cream bars and just go visit with them. And these were realtors who for a long time were sitting at their desks twiddling their thumbs because there was hardly any sales going on. It was all refinance market. And these companies that were dedicating themselves to just doing refis, once the sales started picking up, they went out of business. There was escrow companies around me that were out of business, and we thrived because we paid attention to what our basis of customers were, which is our realtors. I think that's a good lesson for people to remember. You always leave yourself open to not discarding someone or something because maybe you're not getting something right then and there, and just be true to who you are and be kind to these people and reach out to these people, and it will come back. I love Karma.
Yep. I love Karma. She's a good friend. And that just goes into cultivating relationships, right? It's not always about transactions. So it's not always about, oh, here's a thank you card, now give me some business. It's about, here's a thank you card because I care about you and I'm grateful for what you've done. And you cultivate that and it grows. And it might not be any business ever, but it might be connections. It just might be an amazing relationship too.
Well, the greatest relationship that I formed was with the Century 21 office. I saw that they had just opened their doors. I hadn't seen them before. And I went in. They were in West Covina. And I went in there one day, and it was a lovely husband and wife. And they were painting the walls. They had just moved in. Big office, huge office. They had one realtor. That was it. And I visited them every single week. And I watched them grow. And let me tell you something. At one point, they had 150 agents, and guess what escrow company they came to? Mine.
That's
because
awesome.
I always, no matter whether they had just Mary, the one agent, or if they added more, I was always true to building that relationship with them. So.
Is that back when Century 21 still wore the yellow jackets?
I don't remember if they did or not.
I always wanted to be a realtor just for that yellow.
Oh, just for the jackets.
All right, guys, there's some great questions that have been sparked from this conversation, mainly about gifts for escrow officers. I've got a little bit about that, and then Carol, I'd love to hear your feedback too. When it comes to gifts, number one rule is always be in compliant with your state laws. Number two, know the difference between prospects and clients. I tend to splurge a little more on my actual clients that I have a thriving relationship with. And then my prospects, depending on the dynamic of that relationship, is usually just going to be thank you cards. Every now and then, I don't mind splurging and sending out a Starbucks card. Hey, thank you for that signing. Or, hey, I'm in your area. Would you like to meet for a coffee, or along those lines? But I don't invest heavily. I don't buy relationships that way. And sometimes it can be a little fine line. A little thank you or a token of appreciation is one thing, but you don't have to stress about investing and buying spa packages for prospective clients. I like to take care of escrow officers that have done amazing things either in their career or in our relationship. That's a little bit different. So you just want to know the difference and kind of figure out on your own what you can do. And there's not a whole lot of pressure to spend a bunch of money either. You can do a lot of things relatively free or relatively inexpensive and free. Carol, what do you think on that?
Well, you have to remember, I'm a lot older than you are. And back in those days, we were wined and dined. I mean, especially title companies, they would take us out for beautiful lunches. They would buy us gifts. And then all of a sudden, government said, no more. They were not allowed to do that. So then they went down to the little calendars for your desk or something. I'll tell you what means more to me as a teacher when I get a handwritten letter from a student. They've taken the time to write it, not email it, send it to me. It just means everything to me. So I don't come from a place where I gave gifts. I was in a place where I received a lot of gifts, and then the government stopped that. So I don't know. I think that just doing something that it doesn't have to be expensive gifts or anything. I think your idea for an escrow officer, if you have an escrow officer that really uses you a lot, that you really care about, I think your idea, a massage, oh my God, that's a great idea.
It's been the most popular gift I've given. So, and I get really creative on this stuff, guys. The massage and mani-pedis, like I have one client, she uses one manicurist. That's it. She's very precise in everything that she does. So that's where I got her a gift certificate. And she's one of my biggest clients. I've done car washes. There's this app called Wash, WASHE, where you can order car details and they'll just meet you wherever your car is. I've done that for clients before. A little on the expensive side, but very much appreciated, but not remembered. So I probably will have stopped doing that, but everybody can kind of play with it. The most powerful gifts that I've given, the ones that people remember, are exactly what Carol just said. The handwritten cards, maybe customized with a photo of us or a photo of their pet, or something signifying whatever it is they're going through, whether it's a promotion or they get their own branch, a record-breaking sale, a death in the family, a new pet or a new child in the family, those types of things. That's really what my clients have remembered. That's what's kept me friends with them, not just clients, but friends for years. So that's why I say you don't have to stress so much about the expense of your gifts. The authenticity, the creativity, and the vulnerability is really important. I'm able to get more vulnerable in writing. That's just how I'm more comfortable. So I can share maybe more than if I was staring somebody in the eye and said it meant this to me. It's way easier. It's a little safer too, to put it in writing. It lets them sit and absorb it and let it hit home as well. So it just works for me. So
well, I didn't really, as a notary, I never did give gifts. Every once in a while I would write a note or thank you, pay special attention. I'll tell you what, I had one of my graduates, she called me. She was working with a company that was new to her, and they hired her and they were paying her pretty good. And when she would ask for a little bit more, and then something happened and she was afraid that maybe she had killed her relationship with them. And what I advised her, and people may not, agree with this, but because they were paying her what she asked, she was afraid now she had lost that relationship. And I said, drop them a note to the person that always calls her. Drop them a note and say, I really appreciate how you allow me to negotiate my fee if I'm driving a little further or some, just a thank you. And let them know that if there's a time when you're kind of limited, you're really, because this happens so many times now with the signing companies, that they're only allowed to pay so much. Let them know that you're willing to work with them the way that they're willing to work with you. That doesn't mean I'm going to charge you less every single time, but just let them know that you're willing. I was telling her, for instance, that we had a company that we worked with in Southern California for years when we were in California. When we moved to Phoenix, he called us and he said, I have lost my person in Phoenix. Got a lot of work. Would you and Bill be willing to take it? But for a little bit less money. It was like $10 less for each one of them. But we had worked with him a long time. He was a great guy. And I figured the volume was worth it. We had a really good relationship with him. And we ended up making a lot of money almost immediately when we got into Phoenix. So I think sometimes when people don't have a lot of money or don't feel like they want to spend money, I think letting them know that you can work with them and cooperate, and you're not always going to be that, yes, I've got to make 100 and a quarter, have to make 150 of this, and let them know you're willing to work.
I love that, because just being open to the communication, being open to what I call a win-win. Maybe they need a lower fee. It's the agents who answer the phone, hi, how much are you going to pay me? Those, you're going to be out of business in no time. You might get $150 for a signing every now and then, but the ones that the companies that want to establish a relationship with you can't get past your money wall. So you got to at least be willing to have the conversation, because opportunities like this are everywhere. If you can make it work for them, make a win for them, they'll make a win for you too. I love that. I've got a couple of good questions here. Teresa says, how would you know what mani-pedi place she uses? Do you ask them? So Teresa, I'm really glad you asked that. And this really highlights the importance of the relationship. We talk a lot about how important relationships are, but imagine a relationship that's progressing and evolving. You're eventually you're gonna pick up on stuff. They're gonna share stuff with you. You're gonna share stuff with them. It really kind of evolves very much like a friendship. So it's not like I get a signing and I ask her, who's your mani-pedi person? It's not like that. It organically comes about, and I hear her talking about her nails, and she goes, I go to the same nail lady all the time. And then I know one of her friends, I actually asked another escrow officer, who does she use? I'd like to do something nice for her. And then I had to do the same for that other escrow officer too. And it really worked out well. But that was, that was 2 years into our relationship, so it does organically come about at some point. Always be listening, though. That's the key part. Always listen. There's opportunities to help and support and be of value everywhere. Linda asks, is constant contact a good utility to use to learn about escrow officers and loan signing companies? So Linda, constant contact is more of a way for you to communicate and automate your communication and follow-up. It can be very, very helpful for that, for managing your contact list, but actually utilizing it as a tool to learn about other people, I don't see the direct connection there. Okay. Great, Teresa. And yeah, she says that she talks to her title officer, but stuff like that doesn't seem to come up. That's okay. You don't want to force stuff like this. But sometimes you can just introduce little pieces of your personality to just give permission that this is not just a only business relationship. We can cross that. We can start talking about other stuff if you want. You just got to trust your gut and respect the boundaries. If they've established the boundaries where we don't want to talk about personal stuff, you just respect that too. Who knows what will come up? Sometimes you'll hear them talk to each other versus you too. All kinds of information there. All right, let's jump into the questions, Carol, because we're already 30 minutes in and we have a crap load of questions. All right. Oops, here we go. Carol, maybe you can shed some light here. I'm preparing to complete the loan signing agent certification. I want to know what steps I should take beforehand.
From whom?
The National.
Who are they taking it from?
National Notary Association.
Well, it's all based on the SPW Code of Conduct. I have the study materials I send to my graduates when they are ready to do that. I do think it's a really good idea and I do suggest to all of my graduates to get their background screening from the NNA and to get that exam. It's $65. It covers the background screening and the exam. The study materials are everywhere. It's just SPW Code of Conduct. You should have no problem passing. And then that gives you not only a background screening, but the NNA certification, which is accepted pretty much anywhere. So that's what you need to do.
Yeah, one thing I like to tell people too is that, we hear certification exam, we automatically maybe bump it higher than this one needs to be. This is not the end-all be-all test where you take it and it tests your knowledge on how to be a loan signing agent and how to do your job and do it well every day. It is just like Carol said, it's really just an overview of the code of conduct, how we're supposed to act in general, kind of a best practices overview. So you don't have to stress yourself out to take this test. There's lots of resources. It is based on the study guide. It's open book. It's open internet. And if you're part of Sign and Thrive, we do the NNA test taking parties too. And now we can record those. So there's lots of resources to get you through that.
Now, if they're asking about my certification.
Yeah, that's different, right?
Oh, yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
8% of our students pass the first time. Most of them pass the second time. It's tough. I require 90%.
90%, yeah. That's huge, and that's the notarytopro.com if you want more information on that. What credentials must you have to coach and teach notary training? Is there a minimum time period, or can you act from a feeling or a vision? Carol, what do you think of that?
Oh, I worked very hard to get to this point. I can't believe it, but I'm finally in business 10 years.
Wow.
And I knew that I needed to do this because I had been doing signings. I'd done escrow, I'd done signings, did signings 14 years. And what really made me feel bad was to watch people that, even people that I would like try to help get started, and I would watch them fail because there was no comprehensive, detailed, this is what you do, and this is the next thing you do. There was none of that. It was all, the NNA has done a great job with a lot of things. As far as the notary signing agent training, it lacks a lot. I think most of us know that. So the credentials that you have are just knowing what you need to do. I felt so bad watching people fail that were really good people before they ever had a chance to succeed, because they just didn't have that kind of training. So I think anybody that goes into this, as long as you've got the experience, because the credentials, they don't matter. I have a high school diploma. I never made it to college. I have 3 siblings who have master's degrees, and I was lucky to get through high school. It's not that type of credentials. I think it's just knowing this business and being compassionate with people, really being there for them, really wanting to help them. I think that's what it takes.
Yeah,
I mean, look how much you care.
Yeah, I think. I think heart means a lot. Heart gets you through a lot of the hard times, because this is actually harder than it might look. There is a lot of, especially when you start teaching stuff to people across different states. It's difficult, but it's definitely possible. Obviously possible. Carol's doing it. I'm doing it. Mark's doing it. There's all kinds of people that are doing it. So while heart is important, I think integrity and the ability to say, I don't know, is important as well. And it's okay not to have all the answers. And if you pretend like you have all the answers, I think you can get into some hot water that way.
Yep.
And then also, I think this, one of the things I love about this industry is that it's ripe for innovation. There are the next experts, the next gurus are on this call with us right now. They're part of our audience already. There are things that we can't provide, or things that we're missing, or perspective that we don't have. And there's an opportunity here. So if you have an idea, if you have a burning desire inside to share your vision and share your passion for this business, then I say do it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Especially state specific.
I was just going to say that. So you were right on the same page. We need state experts.
Yes. One of my graduates, Phyllis Traylor. Oh my gosh, she has just taken off in Texas. Yep. I mean, she gave classes for the state. She's doing great. She's doing it right. And so I love the gal in Virginia. What's her name? Bryce. Does anybody know what her name is? I can't think of her name. Anyway, she's terrific. These people make a really good name for themselves when they are experts for their state.
Here's the thing. We have lots of examples. There's almost like a changing of the guard happening right now, right? We've got some people who have been in the industry for 30 or 40 years, and they want it to stay the same. They're not as welcoming and warm and friendly to the new notaries coming in. So there is opportunity. If you see what is being done in a way that you don't like it, there is opportunity to step up and change things. That's how much power we have in this business. It's a relatively low bar to get into. And when you have the right heart, you have the integrity, and you have the vision, you can really make something amazing happen here. And if I can support you in any way in doing that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All right, let's look at the next question. Here we go, Carol. What is a concise, short, and sweet opener when walking into an escrow title office and being met by the receptionist? How do I get past her to the next group? I've been saying I'm a local notary. I live right down the road from your office. I'm available to pick up docs, do early morning signings, and I'm flexible. You want to take this first? Or you want me to go first, Carol?
Oh, I want you to go first. So it's okay for me to say, I don't know.
So, I think we talk about this quite a bit, and I have an opinion about this. I'm not a huge fan of office pop-ins in the first place. The other thing that really stands out about that particular messaging is how many times the word I was used. I live down the street. It's convenient for me. If we want to cut through the clutter, like we were talking about earlier on this call, you got escrow officers are extremely stressed out, extremely busy. They don't want to spend a second hearing about you. What they want to hear is either about them or how you can solve a problem for them. So I would start there. And number one, the first thing above anything is to not do these blind pop-ins where you just pop in. Hi, can I speak to your manager, please? You're not going to get anywhere in that. That's a cold call. Those receptionists, their job is to keep you out. So if you're going to do office pop-ins or even an email or a phone call, do some research ahead of time. Find out who's working in that office. Find out who the manager is. Get their names, see their pictures. These escrow officers, even though there's a lot of practical work behind the scenes, they are, in essence, in sales. Their job is relationships. So you'll find out all kinds of information just on the company website. The directory has their picture, has their name, has their email addresses, their phone numbers. You can look them up on social media. You can find out if they just got promoted. Are they new? Are they the new branch manager? Have they been a top performer? What do they like to do when they're not working? You can find all this information out just to give you some information and really craft a way to get your foot in the door. I like to always start with something that's a congratulations or a thank you for what they're doing in the community. Carol, anything else on that one?
No, I think you pretty much hit it. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, that has not been a place where I've been a lot. Back in those days when I started doing signings, I mean, you just got them, that's all. And if you worked with title and escrow, you had an opportunity to build a relationship with them. It wasn't a matter of cold calling. I don't think I ever did do any cold calling or trying to connect with escrow or title. Mm. But I was in the business, so
right.
It makes a big difference.
Huge. Yep. Excellent. Let's see. Still wondering why a person would steal a page that has an original notary stamp and signature. An employee of a copy shop did that. It was definitely not an accident. I have a particular story on this one, Carol, but do you have any insight on this? Have you had run into this in any cases on why they're stealing notary stamps?
Well, I've already told one, I think, and that was when that gang of people were, falsifying grant deeds and stealing people's properties right out from under them when they were gone on vacation and things. Yeah. Come home and find out they no longer own their property or that they have a huge loan on it. Obviously, it's for bad reasons. They want to falsify notarizations and do something bad with it. Bill had had somebody do a grant deed and tried to sign his signature and copied his notary stamp at one point, and it was pretty scary.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much it. So with the quality of copies that exist today, a lot of times all they want is just an original of your stamp so they can go and make copies and they can apply it to any document that they want, and it almost looks original. I had my favorite UPS store, they always have notaries in there, and it happened to one of the employees there where a guy came in for a random notarization. The notary did his thing, documented everything, but all he wanted, that person just came in just to get the stamp. And then they went, made copies of the stamp, ramped it up however they do it, copied his signature, and then went and signed over like $1.6 million in real estate here in Paradise Valley. So it was a huge case. And of course, there was investigators who came back, but luckily everything was documented in the journal. So that's why so I believe somebody would try to steal a copy of your notary stamp.
And you know something, you brought up a great point. The one thing that I absolutely stress is how important your journal is. Like every time that you administer the oath or affirmation, you need to write that somewhere every time to show consistency. You have to protect everything that you do and make sure that, you know, signatures are there, dates are there, everything, so that if you ever have to turn that journal over, there's no question. There's no blank lines. There's nothing in there that could indicate that maybe you've done something. You know.
Yeah.
Bill?
Hey, Peggy.
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
I'm wondering, you guys, when somebody pirates a home from somebody, how does that play out in court? Do they actually lose their home even though they had nothing to do with it?
Well, hopefully they catch the people who have done it, and they get, you know, when I watched this happen with that gang, when those people broke into our office and all that, when I saw what happened there, it was devastating. These people had gone on vacation. They lived in Diamond Bar, California, a nice, really nice community with a lot of ranches and things. And they came home and they no longer owned their home because people had deeded it to somebody else and then gotten one of these quickie loans on it. So it borrowed on to the hilt, and, you know, and it was something to try to unwind all that. It's tragic what it can do. It can just devastate a family.
It gets really messy really quick. So it's not like, oh, we can take these back, seize that, especially when people are getting loans on it. It can be years of litigation on that. So it can be a really big deal.
Wow.
You know, I just thought of something. Can I bring up a point while it's in my mind, because this is important to you as notary signing agents, that if you have, when you're doing your notices of right to cancel, you need to really make sure that if they choose to cancel, that they call the lender or somebody, escrow, whoever they have to let them know in advance, hey, I'm mailing this in. I've chosen to cancel because I had, hold on, I'm going to turn this off. I'm trying. Anyway, always do that. Very important, because I learned my lesson one time, and that was a woman who never indicated to me or anyone else that she was going to cancel the loan, and she mailed the notice of cancellation. On the day, she was on time. It got to the post office before midnight on that date, and then the lender got it a day later, and it had already funded and recorded by the time that they got this notice of cancellation. Talk about escrow being upset. Oh my God, everything had to be backed out. Do you have any idea what that would be? How that would cause everybody to get a little upset. So
Yeah,
it's just
stressful.
I just wanted to throw that in. It's very important.
Hey, Laura, are you still on the call? I saw Laura pop in. She's over at the conference. I was going to get
Yeah, I'm here, Bill.
Hey, Laura. Glad you made it.
Hey, yeah, I just have a few minutes. I thought I'd pop in. Quite a few of our fan base are out here who follow our calls and
Awesome.
attending some of the workshops, and it's been fabulous. And I just got out of our keynote address, and I have some great nuggets to bring back that are really helpful. That I'll share when I have an opportunity. So thanks for letting me pop in. I just wanted to hear how it was going today.
All right. So glad you did. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Let's get through some of these other questions here. Just wondering what kinds of cards you send out to the people you notarize for here. This was a question from Sue. And I number one, they're unbranded cards, and number two, they're short and sweet. Usually I'm going to try to choose something or say something that is applicable to whatever our appointment was. congratulations, or, I hope the adoption goes through, or good luck on your journey, or just thank you, or nice to meet you. The most popular cards I sent out were just nice to meet you cards. And then I would just sign it, Bill, and then in parentheses, I'd put the notary, just to remind them who I was. I do not drop business cards in my greeting cards. I do not have branding of my business on the cards. Once you cross the threshold and you start putting your branding on the card, it's no longer just a personal type connection. It becomes an advertisement, and it's okay if you want to do that. Just know that there's a trade-off for that. People respond to authentic, meaningful, personal cards differently than they do pieces of advertisement. Carol, any experience on that as well?
No, I think what you're doing is good. I think it's right. Mm-hmm.
Great. All right, let's see. What about notary travel fees for those of us who are able to charge for travel? I'm in Michigan and I charge $25 travel for the first 25 miles. Do you feel that's about right? Go ahead, Carol.
I think if you're charging for travel fee specifically, I think I may be wrong, but I think it would be best to use the IRS allotment that they say it's 58 cents a mile. And then if you can, charge a service fee for your expertise and your time. That's what I advise most of my graduates to do. But I think that if they ever look into you, what you're doing, and you're charging $1 a mile, I think that you might get into a little trouble. I don't know, but I'm a little nervous about the IRS, so I'm always very cautious about what I do.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point too, is that every state can be different. So just know that sometimes this is spelled out for you, like in Arizona it is. We can charge whatever the government employee reimbursable rate is, which is the 58 cents per mile. And we can charge that round trip. And then in other states, you can actually charge, like what Carol just said, a service fee or a convenience fee. The best way, I think, still to find out what is good in your area is to check out your competition.
Yeah.
Check out other notary websites and see what they're charging, and then adjust accordingly. I do not recommend that you compete on price, so I wouldn't undercut people. That doesn't help anybody, but you can at least get a ballpark for what other people are charging, and then be flexible. The number one thing that we want to, or action we want to inspire on our website, is a phone call or a text message. Let's get a hold of them, and so we can build a relationship and close the deal. And sometimes that might require coming down in your fee. It might require going up in your fee once you get the details as well. But once you get the chance to build a relationship, it becomes less about price and more about you and your expertise.
Hey, Bill, this is Jason. Can I ask Carol a question about what she just said?
Absolutely.
Hey, Carol. So I noticed you said travel fees and service fees, and this is something I've been pondering forever and trying to clarify. So if you charge a service fee, then what would stop and this is a storefront to charge a service fee on top of the notary fee?
Well, I think it's a big difference when somebody is going to a location where there's someone to perform the act of notarization, and where you have made plans and you've put aside your time, and you are traveling, and you have the expertise to do what they need to have done. I think that you should be entitled to a fee over and above what somebody in a storefront would charge. If you're doing, some states are wonderful as far as what you can charge for general notary work. I've never been a fan of general notary work, but today so many states are raising their fees. And gosh, California's $15. Arizona has raised theirs. When I was in Arizona, we could get $2 per signature, and now it's, I think, 10, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, $10.
And we worked for a long time trying to get that passed, and it never did pass, but now. So I think a lot depends on your states. There are some states where it's very difficult to really make anything.
Right.
But
the reason why I'm asking, though, because in Florida we could charge $10. I've been in UPS stores where I've seen them do the right thing and just only charge, but I've also seen them charge like $10 per signature or add a service fee. And I'm like, man, and on top of their business. So I don't, so legality of the legal issues of it, that's the part and no one, when I mean no one, like even talking to the attorney, no one has a straight answer with what we're allowed to truly charge, like notarization act. So in Florida, the state tells me, and NNA tells me you can charge per act. So $10, but if I had to do two oaths or 2 acknowledgments, with one document, I have the right to charge 20, but I'm not fighting, but disagreeing with 50% of the notaries in Florida about this. They're saying no, it's per stamp. And so I don't know. We got to get like clarifications from states. It's just that.
And you've checked with the attorneys and your secretary, the governor's office in Florida.
Yes.
You've checked with them, and nobody can tell you. Really?
So the Secretary of State tells me they can't advise me what I can do, but they tell me that I am allowed based on it's per notarial act. That language. So, and I said, and I asked them, so if I have an acknowledgement on one document, but I'm acknowledging 2 signatures, so I'm in the right to charge $20 if I choose to do so. And they kept saying the response was per notarial act. And so NNA says yes when I called them. So I was just wondering, but I just do $10. I keep life simple. I build that relationship. But I'm just wondering, like you said, the service fee, because that's something when I tell it, I don't even call it traveling fees. I call it service fees, so it's a lot easier and people can accept that better.
Yeah, because that's a big difference when you're traveling to somebody else's and you're offering your expertise and what you're able to do for them. You're servicing them, not just notarizing something. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I'd like to find out what there would be the ultimate decision regarding UPS stores in that.
Yeah, there's I've noticed that across the country, UPS stores, even here in Arizona where it's explicitly not allowed, they will charge a $10 convenience fee. Convenience to walk into their store, which doesn't make any sense. And I think it does push the boundaries, but I think that's also brings to the point the importance of knowing what you can and can't do in your state and doing your due diligence, documenting, and having integrity. Because there are people who clearly are not following the law, but those are not the people that we want to follow, for sure. We are just about out of time, but I want to get through a couple more of these questions, if that's all right with you, Carol.
Sure.
Could you or Carol give suggestions for marketing to the reverse mortgage sector for getting direct work with reverse mortgages? Carol, I think this is a passion for both of us. Do you have some suggestions on that?
There are specific lenders that do nothing but reverse mortgages. I think a good place to start, because Bill and I did this when we were in Arizona. I love reverse mortgages, even though sometimes they're very lengthy, and what they do for people makes you want to do them. And we were able to connect with several lenders who that's all they did. So if you can call, a lot of them did advertise. A lot of them will show that they are reverse mortgage specialists, and go directly to the lenders. I wouldn't even worry about going to Escrow or signing services. Go directly to those lenders that do specifically reverse mortgages. And if you can offer they know that a lot of notaries don't like to do them because they have the misconception about people are old, it's too slow, blah, blah, blah. So if you can get connected and just start doing, even a couple, you'll get work over and over and over again. And that'll be a big part of your business if that's what you want to do.
Huge. Yep, I totally agree. And so within the reverse mortgage industry, there are lenders that specialize in them, of course. There are loan officers that get special licensing for this. They're called certified reverse mortgage professionals. There's only about 150 of them in the country. And then there's also title companies that specialize only in the reverse mortgage products. So those are 3 huge pieces where you can focus on building a relationship. But don't forget the building a relationship part. It's still not about sending an email that's 50 paragraphs about how great you are and how passionate you are about your business. That's awesome. Put it on your about page on your website, but don't put that in an email. We just talked about how stressed out these escrow offices are. The loan officers feel it too. So you want to be short, succinct, do your research on them, connect with them on a different level, cut through the clutter, and start building that relationship. Then you can talk about how passionate you are about the business.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Most of the signings that we have done with reverse mortgages, the loan officers are always there. Have you found that? Because they are the best loan officers. They're always there. They're always attentive. Have you found that? Because in Phoenix, we found that.
Yep, and that's exactly how I connected with Nina Penny. She's one of those CRMPs. She's the one that helped design our certified reverse mortgage signing professional program and our course, that whole deal, because they do. And you know why they show up? Because this product is confusing and notaries have messed it up pretty bad in the past. They don't understand the product. They say the wrong thing. They say something about being scammed. They say something about Tom Selleck. You know, it just throws the whole thing through because they don't understand the benefits and how it works. And even the borrower sometimes doesn't quite understand how everything's working, but they just know that they need the result. So it takes somebody who cares about the customer and cares about the result and the benefit that it might do. So that's why it's so important. That's why so many loan officers that are in this really for the right reason love to show up to their closing issue just to make sure they are available for any questions that need to get answered or walk through stuff. So I love it when they do.
The most important thing that I found that we did every single time was to spend 10 minutes looking through the house, looking at photographs, looking at the things that they have made and comment, getting these people, because they're oftentimes very skitterish about this, because in the 70s, these were really bad.
Yeah.
And make them feel comfortable. Once they feel comfortable with the notary signing agent, they're going to relax, and it can be a very pleasant experience. That makes the whole difference. That's what I have found.
It really does. And you hear some of the coolest stories. I mean, the history that some of these people have had and the experiences and the lives that they live is really kind of fascinating. So if you enjoy those types of conversation, you enjoy hanging out, eating cookies and drinking tea, there's a really good niche market for you. It's one of my favorites.
Did I tell you the story about the mafia guy?
No.
Okay. We went into a home in Surprise, Arizona, and I noticed that he had pictures on the wall, and all of the pictures looked like The Sopranos. And I'm like, is this your family? Nice, is this brothers? And he said, yeah, it's my family. And then he proceeded to tell Bill and I how he was raised in New York, and he was raised in an area that was mafia bound, okay? And the big mafia boss put him to work when he was, 10 or 11 years old, running errands for him. By the time that he was 16 or so, he was starting to drive this mafia boss around. By the time he was, I think, 22, he fired him. He said, you're way too smart to be working for me. And he put him through college.
Wow. Cool story.
Yeah, story.
Yeah, no kidding. And you've got one for everything, Carol. I love it.
I do. I'm old. What can I say?
I better start writing some of this stuff down. All right, guys, that takes us just past the 9 o'clock hour. Carol, thank you so much for spending some of your vacation time with us. We really appreciate it. And those on the call, thank you so much for growing yourself and your business on the Tuesday morning. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye.